I think that the implications of the research I'm citing here are fairly straightforward and obvious. We, as therapists, if we want to improve, need time to reflect on the feedback that we receive. This was essentially the finding in the research done by Darrow Chow and colleagues just a year ago. He looked at a group of therapists and identified the difference between the best and the rest. And that difference was basically the amount of time spent in an activity called deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is time spent before and after the activity, engaged in thoughtful reflection, in identification of errors, in planning, execution, and reviewing that particular performance, all done in an attempt to improve. It turns out that the best therapists spend approximately 3 times more time devoted to this process than average therapists. And when you compare the best to the worst therapists in the sample, the numbers are even more staggering. The best spend approximately 10 to 15 times more time engaged in deliberate practice than the worst. Several times I've mentioned what therapists should be focused on in their deliberate practice efforts. It's very clear from our study of top-performing therapists that they are a different group. They spend a lot of time reflecting on how they can get better at engaging their clients. And it turns out that top performers are much better at engaging a broader and more diverse clinical sample in a working relationship than average therapists. Secondly, they're much more open to negative feedback. Yes, it's important to know when you're off track, but when you're trying to improve at therapy, it's really important to know when you're not on track, to solicit negative feedback. And last but not least, the top performers were also much more open to their shortcomings. These kinds of findings are shored up by Helene Nielsen-Lie, a Norwegian psychologist who's found that the best therapists in her samples evince more humility in terms of their professional expertise. Think about that, an attitude of humility. Now, I'm not talking about faking it. I'm talking about truly believing in your bones that your effectiveness is limited. It's a work in progress. Doing so allows us to focus on our errors without it hurting our egos in an attempt to get better at our craft.